6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ward Radio live stream. Good morning. I got a call I got a call recently just from Luke Hanson here, editor-in-chief of Ward Radio News, who informed me, as you're just start, you start, my man.
It looks like we have our guy, or they have their guy. The assassin of Charlie Kirk, the tragic event that happened at University of Utah on September 10th at around noon, has been apprehended by the police. We have a live stream that we are going to be looking at. There's a press conference that is scheduled to be started in about 3 minutes. However, they have delayed it already.
I see you trying to rehabilitate the image of the Daily Wire amongst members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And of all the live streams of this that you chose the Daily Wire.
It was the first thing that popped up. It's not, we're trying to do this fast. We're trying to do it in real time. My apologies. I'm still subscribed to the Daily Wire. I'm sorry. So that's what I threw in the chat.
Okay, so
you won't have to listen to Cabot, I don't think. Okay. We'll turn it off before Cabot comes on, okay?
That's funny. So tell us what we know.
He's been caught. Really tragic. I mean, we were talking before this about how much we've been affected by this, and I'm kind of like, oh, that's the conservative guy, that's the Republican guy, but like, I didn't even follow him that much. I watched a couple of his conversations, mostly like little short snippets. I've had my critiques of Turning Point, but this was deeply affecting, and it seems to be the case for other people that we've been talking to, like people that didn't expect to feel this way about this event. Yeah. And it seems like it's because not so much that we had a personal or even political connection to Charlie or Turning Point, but just what it means for what state our country is in, what state politics is in, what state the world is in.
They killed the let's have a conversation guy.
Exactly.
Like, let that sink in. That's actually one of the best conversations, comments I saw on YouTube. And I've actually been I've been surprised at how much this has actually affected me as well. Yeah. Because like you, I wouldn't call myself a Charlie Kirk fanboy, but in many regards, I see a lot of my personality is very much like his, willing to go on campuses, willing to debate, willing to argue, like a mainstay and proof that persuasion will always outdo morally and ethically and in results is always better than dominance and force. And I've been telling people that have been asking what it's like. I kind of think, is it a fair representation to say that this is like a millennial RFK assassination event?
I actually yesterday put out a video on Doctrine and Governance with some thoughts. This is the youth's 9/11. It happened the day before. Yesterday was 9/11, which was the day that this event really hit us. Okay. There were 3,000 in the crowd watching Charlie Kirk. About 3,000 died on 9/11. 2001. I'm one of the last people. I was just a little after 5 and 2 months at the time 9/11 happened. And I have snippets, I have fragments that later in life I realized were all the same day in 9/11. So for these kids, for the youth, for people 26 and under, who was mostly who Charlie Kirk was reaching out to, this is their 9/11 event. It's the largest political assassination since probably RFK. MLK happened about the same time. JFK was just a few years before that. It's the largest political assassination, but it's different. It's more akin to MLK because he was not a politician. He was not in office. He was not running for office. He didn't even seem to be intending to run for office. He was the let's talk about it guy.
Although
he got shot in front of 3,000 people for it.
It's interesting. One of the best articles that I ever saw on this, and I'm going to have to pull it up on the YouTube community post, is, did you see what Benny Johnson, who knew Charlie Kirk fairly well, I think they did kill a future president of the United States of America. Like, I'm sorry, Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk, if there was somebody poised, able, and obviously politically active enough to launch a presidential campaign. Like, okay, he didn't declare like Joseph Smith did, but like Charlie Kirk was going to be president someday. Like,
I do actually disagree with that. I'm not sure if he would
I
be.
don't think he was
Partly
gonna
because I don't even know if that was his intention. He didn't seem to have the interest for that
it was
aspect
sure
of it.
taken
However,
from him. It was sure taken from him.
yeah, he would still be a fairly young dude in presidential terms in 20 years.
And
No idea where he could have gone in that
wasn't,
amount of time.
in 20 years, with how well he performed consistently every single day on campaigns and how much he swung the youth vote for Donald Trump. Like, Charlie Kirk got Donald Trump elected. Well, Charlie Kirk and Barron Trump convincing him to go on all those podcasts. That's what did it, right? So, anyway,
This is what Butler, Pennsylvania almost was. Butler probably would have been a little worse, but we almost had it a little over a year ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and now we had it 2 days ago.
Because part of the first...
They are going to be starting the conference probably any second.
Yeah.
We probably should talk a little bit about what we know already from the shooter before they start. If that's all right.
Yeah.
We do have Trump's Fox and Friends appearance that he did just about an hour ago, I believe, a little over an hour ago. That's a couple links before your Zoom link in the Discord.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Donald Trump on Fox and Friends. Go. It was muted. Go.
Close to him, turned him in.
Here we go.
I don't want to go too far. I'd like to tell you some stories at how it happened, but essentially somebody that was very close to him turned him in. And that happens when you had some of those good shots. Somebody is going to say, whether it's a parent or whatever, I'd rather not say right now. They're going to announce it today, sometime later, probably talk about that. But somebody close to him turned him, they said, whoa. It's interesting where we had very good pictures, but not great, not perfect. And when you look at it, what happened is somebody, and this happens a lot. It happened with the crazy Boston bomber. It happened with others. Somebody that's close recognizes even a little tilt of the head, which nobody else would do. And somebody that was very close to him said, that's him. And essentially went to the father, went to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic, by the way. And the person was involved with law enforcement, but was a person of faith, a minister. And brought him to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic. And the father convinced the son, this is it. And
oh, interesting. So somebody recognized even a grainy photo.
Yeah.
And
it seems like, I mean, someone who works with law enforcement, but is also a minister, and it's in Utah. It didn't say he has a full-time job there and is a minister of a congregation, but I think that's an easy extrapolation to
There's
make.
not too many ministers outside of Mormonism that also have jobs as law enforcement. Is what you're saying.
In case anybody's not tracking what I'm trying to say here, it really seems like a bishop or a former bishop.
Wow.
Seems to be the guy who turned him in. However, we're gonna hear in 10 minutes here who it actually was, so we don't need to speculate too far on it. But
okay,
it does seem to be what it's looking like at the moment.
Okay, well, keep going. Keep telling us more, man.
Yeah. So. I did have something that I wanted to say.
Okay,
but then we played that. I mean, this is just crazy, man. What happened? I've been, it's bad. But as I was saying yesterday in my video, we have rather shocking admonitions in Scripture for situations like these. We're actually in Come Follow Me right now, section 98. It talks about the saints in Missouri. They had like severe persecutions. They're probably going to get kicked out. They did get kicked out. And the first thing that the Lord told to them is like, hey guys, so be really grateful and rejoice and be comforted and don't be afraid. And, if that's just some person telling it to you, it's almost like the telling women to calm down meme. It's like, what the heck are you talking about? How could that be your advice right now? But that is what we are commanded to do in situations like these. And also, Jesus has a really hard teaching of love your enemies, bless those that curse you, do good to those that hurt you or despitefully use you. And then, of course, on the cross, he said, forgive them for they know not what they do. That doesn't mean, and we have other examples in scripture, that doesn't mean you just roll over and are just, oh yeah, whatever. Okay, we'll stop speaking about this. Yeah, you're gonna shoot me. All right, I'll stop saying that thing. Because the whole reason Jesus was on the cross was because he didn't stop saying the thing that people wanted him to stop saying, which was the truth. So you can't do that. But at the same time, I'm I'm a little nervous about how people on the right will react to this. However, I have been encouraged by a variety of people that I've been watching, listening to, some of the thought leaders, especially on the right, that have shown the resolve to keep on going, but at the same time haven't just flown off the handle and started to kind of descend into hate and
Yeah.
rage and some of the things that I think people are feeling. Because if we go down that path, then we turn into more what the shooter was than what Charlie was. I think actually Charlie, I'm not trying to turn him into Jesus or Joseph Smith or anything like that, but I think he actually is a pretty good example of the peacemaker archetype that Russell M. Nelson is trying to get members of the church to follow. Bold, unafraid, have the conversations, say what you believe to be true, while at the same time not turning an us versus them. It was us versus them, but it's not like a them. Like those people over there, they're subhumans,
Yeah.
like the Nazis did, or you do with slaveries and blacks and that kind of stuff.
So we're going to go over this New York Post article before the live stream starts here, just to, get all of the details in order so everybody is ubicado, as we say in Spanish, so everybody is situated here before the live stream starts. But basically, this is the New York Post. Tyler Robinson, 22-year-old from Utah, ID'd as Charlie Kirk's shooting suspect after father, quote, turned him in. Trump says we have him. All right, let me resituate this. Sorry, I got a little messed up there. And what's really interesting is finally seeing the footage of him jumping off of the roof. That's interesting that they were able to finally get that ID'd. And man, like, it's surreal watching this. And
it's places that both of us have been before.
Exactly. I've covered stories there. It's for people familiar with Utah, as you and I are, it's almost unbelievable. So anyway, let me keep it together and finish reading what the actual article says. President Trump announced early Friday that a suspect for Charlie Kirk's assassination was turned in by his father, with law enforcement sources telling the Post it's a 20-year-old, a local Tyler Robinson. I think with a high degree of certainty we have him, Trump told Fox and Friends during a live interview at the cable giant's Manhattan studio, saying he heard just minutes before his 8 a.m. interview. Somebody who was very close to him turned him in, the president said, then revealing it was the suspect's dad, who relayed it through a minister who was involved with law enforcement. Now, by the way, if he is indeed Mormon, Luke, this destroys the ex-Mormon, anti-Mormon argument that, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints circles the wagons around abusers and around criminals and around... This is proof we believe in upholding and sustaining the law, right? And also, what idiot with a cop dad does this? Like,
I mean, I don't want to go too far into talking about what those people are going to say to this. However, they do like to paint it in the worst light possible, and so you could definitely see, when it's a person politically that they like that gets killed, they turn him in. But when it's somebody abusing the kids, they don't turn him in.
Yeah, well, of course, there's always some spin they want to put on this. Yeah,
but I don't even really
forget
talk about that too much.
They're not even worth addressing. So anyway, he continues in the article here to say, I hope he's going to be found guilty, and I hope he gets a death penalty. What he did, Charlie Kirk, was the finest, and he didn't deserve this. Trump did not ID this suspect. However, law enforcement sources told the Post it was Robinson, who lives in Utah. So that's what I don't want to call it a mainstream media. I don't even know what the term is anymore. Legacy media. That's what the New York Post
and even the New York Post is kind of, I don't even know what tabloidy.
Exactly. It's what's so interesting about the New York Post too is, did you know it's the longest running newspaper in America?
Yeah, it was like Alexander Hamilton, I think, that started it, right?
Yeah, 1700s, which is actually really kind of cool. You'd think that like
it'd be the New York Times.
Or you'd almost think that like it would be not purchased by the U.S. government, because then you wouldn't want it to turn into propaganda or something like that. But you'd almost think there'd be some kind of like, you're literally the oldest, like the endowment for the arts would give them money or something, you know, just for having existed for 250 years, right? Like I have a clock in my house that was built in 1755. And I keep that thing running. I pay the clock restorer to make sure every 2 years the mechanism is redone. I pull the chain down so it keeps time, and I check the time once a week, which, by the way, it still is accurate within about a minute or two over an entire week. So even 1755, my clock predates this country, and I have much better clocks. It's not by some amazing clockmaker who's world renowned and in all kinds of museums somewhere else, but just by virtue of the fact that it's a thing that performed a function that exists older than our country. It's like that has to be preserved, right? So I just kind of think,
I wish my sprinkler timer worked that well. Trying to get that thing to actually go when it's supposed to go.
Exactly.
The struggle is real. I am curious, we're keeping an eye on this, so we will be pulling up the press conference when it starts. We have a live video feed. Nobody at the podium now, although lots of people in the audience, officers kind of showing back and forth in front of the podium. So preparations are definitely being made. It's coming up soon. I'm curious, though, Cardin, is there a before and after for you in terms of you being comfortable doing live events or even outdoor events, on the street type of stuff?
Bro, we were showing up to debates in bulletproof vests before this started. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And they mocked you for it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They mocked us for it. It's like, dude, you haven't been on the receiving end of these threats. You do not know what people that hate somebody that is viewed as socially conservative, how that is. It's actually not the threats that scared me. And I don't know if scared is the correct word, but concerned me enough to take the action that I took. It was the fact that the public didn't seem to resoundingly think that is inappropriate to threaten somebody's life when it's coming from the non-socially conservative side of the argument. Had the threats been more like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? But like the fact that like our society just kind of allows just that kind of saber rattling, shall we call it, as long as it's in defense of just those people on that side of the aisle, was very alarming to me. Was just how, holy smoke, it's like, if I'm going to engage in this conversation of sincerely held religious beliefs, which will deeply motivate somebody. I mean, I was deeply motivated to participate in the debate. I was deeply motivated to, confess my faith publicly when challenged and try and logically show how I got to the place I got in terms of thinking I'll support X, Y, or Z view. Like, that'll motivate a guy to overcome all kinds of deep concerns and all kinds of fears, dare I say. I mean, the scriptures always talk about, open your mouth regardless of fear, right? But what led me to think, okay, I really need to protect myself, and we need to hire an extra guy, and we need to actually pat down people that are coming in, was not just the actual threat itself. Because I live in LA. There's crazy people walking around everywhere. You know what I'm saying? But like the fact that it's like LA now with the homeless crisis. It's odd, but it's like homeless people over the past 10 years have just kind of become this like oddly protected class that are just never held accountable for anything. And it's emboldened how they will literally just set up camp anywhere they want because they've been arrested 5,000 times and they know that they're just going to go to a special court where the judge knows that they don't have a home address. So the law can't be enforced upon them. And as long as they say, okay, whatever, and then walk out the side, they get to just do whatever they want. Right. And so all that does is just generally create a disrespect for the law altogether. So it was that's what concerned me. Now it looks like we have somebody at the podium here. Should we toss over to the live stream?
Yes, that looks kind of like a sound check. Yeah, he's going away now. I think we're anticipating, yesterday they did a conference. I think it was in the same room, and it was Governor Cox that was mostly speaking, then one of the special investigators, whatever their specific title is. I know that Cash Patel and Dan Bongino are in Utah or in Salt Lake City right now. For something this big, I do anticipate them making comments as well as the governor and then whoever was specifically involved in running this case. So I think that's what we're going to be looking for.
Yeah, and I'll just finish answering your question you asked, is there a before and after? Yes and no. Obviously, there's going to be some kind of short-term clampdown, and everybody that saw this thinks, or at least that engages publicly, thinks like, is that going to be me next in one form or another? Okay. However, I think a lot of that fear, like right now, there is an opportunity. If our society can very successfully and roundly, and if whatever group they're going to try to pin this guy into or associate him with, because inevitably this is happening. I mean, if the guy ends up being a Giants fan, all Giants fans are going to be held accountable. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. So if our society can like prove itself in not a virtue signaling way, but like in a genuine way, just saying like, okay, we are disgusted by this political violence, then I think there's a chance to return to normalcy. Okay. And if we can all just like agree that this political assassination culture like needs to end. Cade Alvey on
all those in favor.
I almost said all those opposed. Yeah. All those in favor. Cade Alvey and Baylor Johnson on all those in favor brought up a really, really good point about an article that was written. Where was that article written? That was in our group chat about assassination culture.
It was like a report. Charlie Kirk posted about it.
Yeah.
But it was some sort of like actual study.
Yeah, I can pull it up on a screen here, but literally I'd never even heard the terminology assassination culture before. And so we've descended as a society into many negative cultural aspects before. And I really think that if we can come together as a society, I think we can heal. I very much believe in redemption. I very much believe in, you can't be a Christian and not believe in redemption if it's sincerely held religious beliefs. You're not just showing up to church, right? So I definitely feel that there is a path forward for public figures to again regain their confidence. But just like Jordan Peterson said, everybody loves at least once. And then they get burned. And the second time you love, you don't love out of naivete. You love out of, do you remember the quote?
Was it bravery?
You love out of courage. Yes, exactly. Courage. And so I think for many people that do engage publicly, now, of course, just because you engage publicly does not mean that you are on the same level as Charlie Kirk, and I am by no means, comparing every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
And I was not trying to even put you there or myself
there. Exactly. So, I mean, but we're just saying in whatever slice or in whatever measure it applies that I think going forward that there will be, hopefully, a return to normalcy, but it depends on, frankly, how much the American people can actually finally band together. And if anything, if there is a silver lining in this, I'm seeing inklings of this, and I'm hoping that it flourishes into something larger. but it really, like, even Time magazine, their cover of just enough of this, left, right, or center. Like, had this happened to even somebody on the left, I don't think the right wing in America would be saying, "Oh yeah, hey, I'm very disappointed in how the left celebrated this." Blue Sky was basically just I was going to use a vulgar term, but I'm trying to use less vulgarities on live streams. I'm also in such distinguished company as Luke Hanson. So anyway, I was very disappointed in some of the most far left reactions to this.
Yes.
But I'm hoping that those people will be so resoundingly not silenced, but rebuked by the middle and the center left, that they'll start realizing, oh, okay, so the hate party's over. We have to act like normal human beings now. And I do believe people can change. It's hard and it's difficult, and it requires a very hard and difficult thing. And this was obviously a national hard and difficult thing, a tragedy. And so I'm hoping that it becomes a catalyst moment where that Time magazine article of just like, enough of this. Because I think even if this would have happened to somebody on the left, people on the right would have been like, just like, enough of this crap. Like, America does not want this. This is not us. We are the place where free speech moves people and the needle, and elections change things, not vigilantism, not greed, not corporatism. No isms do this. Okay, voting does this. Persuasion does this. This is our way. And whether you like it or not, whether you love him or hate him, I always said I would take a bullet for Barack Obama during his presidency. Why? Because he represented the American people and the fact that Americans chose him. And whether we like it or not, he's our guy for 4 years. And maybe even 4 years after that. And we have to respect that if this is part of our system. You know, so anyway,
we do have somebody. Oh, now she left. Although she looks more professional. The other guy who seemed to be doing a sound check was just kind of like t-shirts and shorts dude.
Yep.
Now there was a professionally dressed lady who came up.
Oh, that's when you know. That's
had a binder and stuff and the mic. So
here we
things
go.
Look like they're getting prepared. Yeah, to your point, Cardin. I'm not saying that everybody who says certain things is at the level of the shooter, but you have to be very careful, and this goes for both sides, although I think it's clear that it's prevalent more on certain sides than other sides, that you have to really examine and see what your participation level is in the kind of rhetoric that gets us to these points in history, with Charlie Kirk being the latest example, unfortunately. And if you're out there saying things like, if you hold to the family proclamation, you're doing it out of hate or out of spite or something like that. If you're an ex-Mormon and the brethren are just all this cabal of, you know, it's a live stream, so you can't edit words out afterwards. Yeah, but a cabal of child predator protecting wannabe billionaires don't care about anybody but themselves. Men, you're kind of participating, because if you're stretching that truth, if you're representing people in that deeply calloused and cynical way, you are heightening the temperature. Ben Shapiro uses this term all the time. You're creating permission structures for certain behavior, even further rhetoric, because, oh, I'm only going 2 steps further than that other person did, so it's fine. I'm still in the same ballpark as them. And then somebody else takes it further, and somebody else takes it further and further. And then when you get to the end, when you get to the tail end, not equating the two people, you get somebody like this person that goes down and does this thing. I think the best case scenario, to change gears a little bit, was that this person was just mentally deranged, not in touch with reality whatsoever. Anything could have set him off. Something he saw happen to set him off, but ultimately it was some sort of deep, psychotic mental illness type of thing. as things have come in, it has kind of started to seem like that might not be the case. And hopefully we get more information here. But the more sane and grounded this person was, and the more it seems like they used normally functioning rational capacities to make this decision to take out Charlie Kirk because they felt like it was a necessity for the country, for their movement, whatever, the worse this reflects on America and the state we're in right now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it is starting to look like that's the case. We did have reports from Steven Crowder that were backed up by the Wall Street Journal that there was kind of a whistleblower in, I forget the agency's name, the three-letter agency's name, that was doing this examination. They reported that there were trans and anti-fascist messages engraved on these bullets.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hopefully we get some more details on that.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, while we're waiting for this live stream, I don't want to keep the audience, I don't want to keep the audience in the dark here. So if they're postponing a live stream, I want to go over at least what we know from all of the written details and so on and so forth. So here we go. I'm actually going to be putting an article up on the screen right now so that we can assess this. Is that as we wait for the press conference right here you can see that the whole press is locked and loaded and getting ready. They announced that they originally were going to be starting about 30 minutes ago, but obviously things are delayed, hopefully because there's new information and they're making sure they get all their facts straight and it's good. But they bring us some really, really good points. What we're going to be looking for in this live stream: suspect's name. We already know this, Tyler Robinson. What the motive was. We had heard that there were things written on the shell casings and on the firearm that were telling of a very unpopular and politically charged motive that would be out there. But also, you don't know if that's a ruse. You don't know if that's just something to piss off the public. I would really wait for the psychologists and the investigators and the people that have actually spent time with the individual and gone over a lot more evidence than we just have right now to give us an idea of a motive before the internet starts speculating. So I do indeed look into hearing that, where he has been since the shooting happened and how he was able to elude capture so far, which is one of the number one things that I'm interested in finding out. Because believing this is some 22-year-old kid that just happened to run off. Now, with that said, I was wildly disappointed we had 7 campus safety officers, which, by the way, what does that mean? Does that mean some diminutive dude or some doom-scrolling girl that, you know, got their guard card or something like that in the state of Utah was tasked with protecting Charlie Kirk from a 30-06, like one of the most controversial dudes to show up on college campuses with a petition for 6. I don't see how anybody gets out of this without being branded as having committed a wild dereliction of duty when it comes to campus safety, right? But either way,
on the one hand, it's like, oh my gosh, we're in danger, like we're under attack, the country's falling apart. On the other hand, it's like both in Butler and here, you could have just had one guy on the roof looking around with a radio.
Yes.
And this would have been 100% impossible to escalate to this level.
I had more security per capita as a private person. I paid about $2,500 for whatever the security measures were that we had at my debate. I remember when I line item that whole trip and kind of figured out the budget of what that whole trip to go to that debate in Utah cost me. And I think it was somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000, of which $2,500 was security. You know, like $500, $600 of it was like for the actual labor of the dudes showing up. And they'd traditionally done other parties, and they would search people, say like you can't bring in a knife. If somebody had a gun, they had to be law enforcement, or, you know, they had to be sworn officers, and sworn officers always have their ID and so on and so forth. So, and in that room, you've seen the video. How many people were in that room? 150 to 200?
Oh, for you?
Yeah.
I didn't see the back camera, but
yeah, exactly.
The audience size.
Yeah, it was a big enough audience to be concerned that you might be able to let in some desubicado, some, you know, crazy person or whatever. But I just think, man, how is it that I'm sporting 50% the security that Charlie Kirk had with 1/100th the audience. You know, I just view that as a massive failure on behalf of UVU. So anyway, so we're going to find out where he's been and how did he indeed elude capture? Because I got to tell you, no matter how lax, like, holy smoke, just a 22-year-old normie in Utah, these kids are idiots. We've all served with 19 to 21-year-old men in missions. He's no different than our friend that came back from serving a mission 6 months ago. These people aren't going to be evading and arresting one of the largest manhunts in North America for 2 minutes. How did he get, 24 to 36 hours out of it? Okay. Well, not 36,
well, and we had somebody very familiar with UVU in our group chats.
Yes.
While this was happening, and they were like, nah, that video on the roof can't have been him. You can't get up onto that roof. It's like, oh, he just walked up there.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. And he just jumped down. Like, holy smoke. So anyway, question number 5, we're going to get answered, which I think is very valid here, is whether or not he was working alone. And then finally, details on his background and whether he had weapons training, which, well, the proof is in the pudding. Okay.
However, people are acting like you have to be some sort of Navy SEAL, hitman, all that kind of stuff.
You just got to practice.
You don't to make a shot like this.
Yeah,
I'm not saying as an expert myself. I have not shot something from that far away.
No, this
before.
This
However, it's pretty normal at gun ranges.
It's an accomplishment that a regular enthusiast with a legally purchased hunting rifle could pull off with moderate practice at a legal gun range anywhere in the state of Utah over a relatively short period of time. If you were committed, but you would have to be committed, which would then show that this definitely not a passion crime. There had to have been practice and rehearsal and so on and so forth involved. So anyway, I'm just going to finish reading the rest of the Reuters article to make sure we get some of the basic information straight as we keep going back and checking in on the live stream. You'll be able to tell me when they actually come out on the live stream. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay,
and
cool.
We are getting a report that says it should be at the top of the hour. Of course, this is the second delay, so take it with 2 or 3 grains of salt.
And by the way, this is the top of the hour.
And we're already at the top of the hour.
We're 3 minutes past the top of the hour.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to finish reading this article right now so that everybody's got the same information as us. U.S. investigators said on Thursday they had found a rifle believed to have been used in the shooting. The weapon recovered by investigators was described by FBI official Robert Bowles as a high-powered bolt-action rifle. It was found in a wooded area near the shooting site in Utah, which to me would immediately indicated one of 2 things. Wanted to be found, wanted to be made into a statement piece because the person was, that was part of their plan because, you don't just find those kind of firearms unless, option number 2, the person panicked. But it'll be hard for me to believe that somebody is cool-headed and cold-blooded, that they were going to plan out and scout and operate an assassination like this would all of a sudden just panic. Now, finding out he's a 22-year-old, who knows? Maybe that might be part of the equation. But, I'm hearing voices. Are we going live here, Luke?
Governor Cox is at the podium. He has not started yet. So if we flip over to that, we will.
Okay, cool.
We'll
All
watch
right.
this.
We're going to go here. I have to pull up the exact same link. And here's Governor Cox. They need to turn up the volume.
That Robinson had confessed to them or
They do.
implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and senior investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus at a Great Dodge Challenger at approximately.
Is it double playing for you?
In which he is observed on video. This information was relayed like colored shorts.
Yeah, no, they've got audio problems over there.
This encounter was also by investigators at Washington County on September 12th. Investigators reviewed early morning hours.
Do you possibly have another tab open?
Surveillance and
Here we
identified
go.
Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:20 11:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I'll share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital OWO, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow, and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who's worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah. But I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the director of the FBI attachment.
Okay. By the way, audio is coming in soft from the stream, so I'm bumping it everywhere.
When you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play. We will play that role, and we will lead out to the federal government. Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilized these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m. where, at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene. State and local authorities, along with the federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly, and I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to bear to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it, and we will continue to deliver to Governor Cox and his team. Last night we had a total of approximately 7,000 leads. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called in to the FBI. And we are running out every single lead that we can. Every one of those leads will be run out. The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great, and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship for law enforcement than the FBI to partner with state and local authorities, and you've seen it here in these last few days. The FBI Salt Lake field office, along with our offices in LA, Phoenix, Denver, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, our headquarters component in Quantico, all participate in the FBI. I want to express my deep gratitude to the employees of the FBI, the men and women, the evidence response team tacticians, special operators, the agents, the support staff. You have done monumental work in historic time when the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI. This is a very much an ongoing investigation, as the governor said, and we will continue to work with state and local authorities to develop the investigation, to provide them the evidence they need for their ongoing prosecutions, and we will be here to answer every call they absolutely have, as long as it takes, for as long as we need to find and apprehend whatever suspects were involved in this crime. Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
Thank you. Good morning. I would just like to take a few minutes as the sheriff to express my gratitude for everybody who has played a part in this investigation. As you know, it's been a vast, a complicated, and a very, very fast-paced investigation. You're looking at people standing up here who are running on, if they got an hour's sleep in the last couple of days, they're probably lucky. It has been very taxing. It has been so impressive, speaking on behalf of the local law enforcement, to see the cooperation that we've seen in this type of case. Across the state, sheriffs, chiefs, our state partners have stepped up and have come to the call on anything that we needed. Our county chiefs have been phenomenal. Our Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, who's standing up here with us, has been phenomenal in leading us through this investigation. I would like to thank the federal government for their resources, their assets. Our local team here, our FBI team, has been extraordinary in helping us work through this and bring this person to justice. Most of all, I would like to thank the public, and specifically, I would like to thank the public who turned to prayers and who turned to positiveness for us. I would like to thank them on behalf of the law enforcement community, because we needed those prayers. That's what we needed to get through this. We needed your support, and you gave it to us. We needed your patience, and you gave it to us. And I would like to thank you for the Kirk family, because that's what they needed, is your support and your prayers, and that will get us through all of this. So thank you, everybody, for everybody that has stepped up. We've had such a phenomenal response to this. Thank you.
For anyone just tuning in, we're watching the press conference at Governor Cox at Orem, Utah. Suspect who they think was the assassin of Charlie Kirk yesterday has been apprehended and is currently in custody. We're catching up on that press conference right now.
Yeah. Ooh.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen.
I also want to give a special thanks to the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. Their unwavering support and their commitment to justice is shown true here. And without AG Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and the resources they brought to bear, we would not have been able to complete our mission. And I just want to say special thanks. It's an honor to be a part of the Department of Justice.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit
permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here, and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere, and every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read Scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. You know, this bad stuff happens. For 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I had hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes. Because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with words I share often from a friend, an author Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country. And he said, I'm not optimistic. He said, I hate optimism. Like, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice. It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He says, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country. And I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil. And I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Governor, can you speak to whether the suspect is speaking with authorities and his demeanor, Tyler Robinson, when he turned himself in?
I cannot speak to that right now.
I wonder what the question was.
Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not. And by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. That's I think that speaks for itself.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating
We do have some other information real quick if you want, Cardin.
Sure, what is it?
It looks like Town Hall is reporting the other bullet casing that says, "Oh, Bella, chow, chow, Bella, chow."
There's nothing
Bella,
more
chow,
that
chow.
we can share at this time. Yeah.
It's a reference to lyrics from an Italian folk song heavily associated with Antifa themes. During World War II, it was transformed into a partisan anthem by Italian resistance who fought against Mussolini and the Nazi occupation of Italy. The lyrics tell of a partisan who leaves home to fight, prepared for the possibility of death.
Okay. Oh, that's good information.
So, yeah, the shooter definitely seemed to view himself as somebody who's going out to shoot Hitler, come what may.
Okay, let's go back to the conference.
You heard the president this morning report that that he was taken into custody, that his family and a friend helped to deliver him into custody of law enforcement in Washington County. For those of you that don't know where Washington County is, it is the southwesternmost part of the state of Utah. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from here, where we are right now, and that's where he lived and where they turned him in. Please, I'll go here. I can't share any more than what I've already shared. Yeah. So
she just asked how the gun was obtained.
Was found here. So I don't have much more details on that. We do know that he drove. We had his car here on campus, and then we had his car going south back to the St. George. It's actually the city of Washington in Washington County.
Is he talking with authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I'm sorry?
They asked about the motive.
We don't have any information that would lead us to believe that. Yes, in fact, it was just released. Yes.
Talking with authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I can't answer that right now. Yeah, thank you. Over here.
Very eloquently about trying to reunite this country. Do you feel this is a watershed in American history?
I absolutely believe that this is a watershed in American history. Yes. The question is, what kind of watershed? And that chapter remains to be written. Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history, or the beginning of a darker chapter in our history? Look, I mean, if you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s, and having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets. We are not wired as human beings, biologically, historically. We have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one.
That's a source problem. That's not a our end of the live stream problem. That's a source problem, actually. With
which one do you have it up on right now?
With a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now, and I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community. That is happening, and it's happening organically right now. I had a friend in a small city in Utah who said, we're getting together. The Republicans and Democrats in my little town are getting together to have a discussion last night, just to find a way to find their better angels. So yes, this could be. I mean, again, you have to go back to JFK to have seen a video live of something like this happening. I wasn't born until 1975, but I know that things were really dark in the late 60s. Sorry to some of you. I know some of you were there. But this is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. Two more questions right here.
Could we clarify that the release of those enhanced images at 8 p.m., the timeline that Director Patel gave us, led to the arrest at 10 p.m.? Is there a direct connection?
I cannot comment if there is a direct connection or not, but all I can say is that that through some process, the family came to know that this had happened.
He asked if the AI images helped. Now he's asking about clothing.
Correct. Yes. So, so when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU. Last question here. Yes.
Suspect was from Utah. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about where, and was he a student here at this university? And is there...
They're asking if he was a student.
Yeah. So I don't have any information on the mental illness part. He was not a student here at UVU. He was living and had lived for a long time with his family in Washington County, in the southernmost part of our state. Thank you, everyone, for...
Okay, that's a source problem. That's not us. It looks like they're having a little bit of...
for your great work in getting this information out. I just say process-wise, this may be important. I know many of you aren't familiar with the process in Utah. I think it's important that you understand that. Basically, we have 3 days for charging documents to be filed. A CI will be filed. We'll have more information then, more detailed information as those charging documents are filed in preparation for a preliminary hearing. So 3 days. So we would anticipate then that early next week those charging documents will be filed. We will obviously be working. The county attorney will be working very closely with Mr. Kirk's family as those documents and decisions are prepared and made. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so there it is. There it is. Your thoughts?
Hello, Brad. That's my first thought. Jonah turned into Brad.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
We got the Peacemaker.
You haven't talked yet,
here.
Brad. So if you want to talk,
jump right in. If your speech at fair ever...
Oh, you know what? We do have... There was some super chats that we probably should get to.
Okay.
I've actually lost the first two. However, they were just super chats without messages.
Yeah, so the first, actually, there was 2 or 3. Actually, I can read them really fast. First super chat came from the Late Bloomer. It was just a super chat. Thank you very much, Late Bloomer, and Amber Sheets. Thank you very much. They just bought us a cup of coffee for everybody here. So thanks, guys. It was an early morning. And then... Angela Lewis said, Cardin, I'd love your perspective on the hand signals of the 2 men behind Charlie in a future stream after you investigate. PBD reported today in the AM. We can talk about that. Before we do, though, let's talk about your guys' reaction to the stream. Brad, you go first.
Oh, I'm glad they caught the guy, That's really what it comes down to for me this morning. I am just glad that we don't have someone on the loose now.
Okay.
Yeah, I
think Cox did well.
I think he did fine. I think he did fine. I see what he's doing
everybody bashing on him. Like, the guy has 3 hours of sleep, and he put this thing together 30 minutes before. It was delayed like almost 45 minutes because they're scrambling to put this together. Like, it's fine. I think he had a good message.
And I think he was sincere.
I think what Charlie's... Yes, and I think what Charlie's death shows us is that we shouldn't be looking for reasons to jump down people's throat about things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, just in regards to a lot of people's questions that they had, the audio at the very beginning was actually very low as a source problem. I don't know if you've ever been to these big press conferences when you were working with the Cougar Chronicle, Luke, But when I was doing Problem Solver Politics, you always show up to the press box, and there's this giant stage where different people of varying degrees of cameras can set up their tripods, and you sit there with the press. There's probably about 50 members of the press that were in that room right then, and then they drag an XLR cable with a big box that you can all plug into that's going to receive the signal. That presumably was not turned in. We had a lot of people complaining about the audio, asking about the audio. I had every aspect of the audio pinned on my switchboard here. And that was as good as it got for the first about 10 or 15 minutes, until it seems like somebody at the press conference figured out, oh, this isn't plugged in. And then all of a sudden they plugged it in. And then that's why the audio got crystal clear there. So, in reactions to questions about the first 10 minutes of that interview, it's probably going to be the same wherever you look, because I assume everybody was operating off of the same XLR box. I could be wrong. I could be proven wrong later. But we checked in on Reuters. The Reuters stream was just as bad. And I can't remember if it was the AP Press or what the other stream was, but they're all bad. Gentile Ban, also thank you very much for your super chat. I really liked Spencer Cox's comments. I said something similar before the press conference started, that where do we go from here? And he said, look, this is either the ending of a dark chapter or the beginning of one. And that's going to depend upon us. And
dude, it's got me thinking about how much President Nelson has been talking to us about being peacemakers, and how much he has been emphasizing that over and over and over. And it feels a lot like the family proclamation, right? Where when that was first said, it was like, duh, yeah, everyone believes this, right?
Yeah.
And we've been getting this counsel to prepare to be better peacemakers. And here we are. We have something happening now where we have the opportunity to choose how we're going to respond, right? Is this the kind of thing where we're going to give in to the division that I think is going to make everything worse for everybody? Or do we choose to be better and choose to find a way to choose peace, even in the face of difficult and horrible things?
Okay, so I want actually us to do a little bit of practical role play here. All right. You literally wrote the talk on peacemaking at fair, Brad, and you just gave the talk here. And I'm angry. I'm angry. I just admit my biases and my problem. There's a Christian half of me that thinks the only way this works is if we forgive and we move on. And I feel like sometimes that's 60%, but there's a very loud 40% of me right now that feels this way. And I actually retweeted this, and I want to get I want to get this right, and I'm not convinced this is right, but I also feel a lot of this in my gut, and I trust my gut. And I understand that Christianity, if you're going to do it right, sometimes you have to turn the other cheek, which may not be what your gut tells you. So I get that you know, we have our religion to help refine our behavior, and there's a practical application of Christianity that you have to sacrifice some things. When you're angry, you can't be angry, because sometimes Jesus Christ says, look, your anger is not in the right spot right now. So I'm going to read this, and I want to get your guys' reactions and see how we apply our own religion to this, how we apply Governor Cox's words to this, how we apply logic and reason and justice to this. This is actually a tweet by one Nick Freitas. I don't know how you actually Freitas. I don't know how you actually pronounce his name. Oftentimes you see kind of like snarky, funny one-liners on YouTube Shorts come up with this guy, but I never actually subscribed to him on Twitter until just September 10th, actually, because this tweet came across my feed. But basically he said, I'm told that as a state representative, this is the moment where I'm supposed to express my heartfelt condolences and then stand in solidarity with those on the other side of the aisle as we condemn political violence and stand unified as one people. But we aren't one people, are we? The truth is we haven't been for some time now, and there's really no point in pretending anymore that there was. We are two very different peoples. We may occupy the same piece of geography, and that is where the similarities may seem to abruptly end. I am convinced I convinced myself for a long time that whenever the left called me a racist, a bigot, a sexist, a fascist, a threat to democracy for even the most innocent of disagreements, that was simply hyperbolic rhetoric done for effect. And now the effect is a widow and 2 orphan children because the left couldn't bear the thought of a peaceful man debating them and winning. I don't think they realize it, but murdering Charlie is going to be remembered as the day we finally woke up to what this fight really is. It's not a civil dispute amongst fellow countrymen. It's a war between diametrically opposed worldviews which cannot peacefully coexist with one another. One side will win, one side will lose. Charlie tried to win that fight through argumentation, through discussion, through peaceful resolution or differences, and the other side murdered him. Not because he was extreme or inciting violence or any other hyperbolic slur they hurled at him. They murdered him because he was effective, because he was unafraid, because he inspired others and made them feel like he had a voice and they were not alone. And he did it with the very institution which has fomented so much hatred against conservatives. I don't want to stand in solidarity with the other side of the aisle. I want to defeat you. I want to defeat the godless ideology that kills babies in the womb, sterilizes confused children, turns our cities into cesspools of degeneracy and lawlessness, and that murdered Charlie Kirk. Social media is aflame right now with leftist celebrations of Charlie's death. I wonder if any among them understand what has just happened. If there is a Yamamoto somewhere in their midst warning that what they all have done is awoken a sleeping giant. And then he keeps going on, but then he mentions his Christian faith, and this is where we jump in. He says there will be no thoughts and prayers Charlie would have wanted prayers. Sorry, there will be thoughts and prayers Charlie would have wanted prayers, not for himself, but for those left behind, for the country that he loved. But then there will be a reckoning. My Christian faith requires me to love my enemies and pray for those who curse me. It does not require me to stand idly in the midst of savagery and barbarism. Quite the opposite. And basically finishes there, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, man? Because there's a lot of people asking, like, what do we do? And what is the Christian response? And that seems to be a very, very varied spectrum, right?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot in this that's very good. I especially like, I can't see that last line because it's not showing up on my side of the screen. Can you read again where he says not stand idly by?
So for every time I feel tired, every time I feel discouraged or overwhelmed, I am going to watch the video of a good man being murdered in Utah. I will force myself to watch it, and then I will return to the work of destroying the evil ideology responsible for that and so much more. Rest with God, Charlie. Your fight is over. Ours is just beginning.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
I think when I look at the paragraph just before that, it doesn't require me to stand idly by in the midst of savagery and barbarism. Quite the opposite. I definitely agree with that. I think we need to not be standing idly by. I think we need to be peacemakers, not pacifists, right? And so I want to turn back to the thing that Russell M. Nelson, our prophet, has repeated many times here. He says, anger never persuades, hostility never heals, and contention never leads to lasting solutions. I want to make sure that as we strive to be peacemakers, we don't mistake that as meaning we should be passive and meaning that we should just not say anything and that we should roll over in the face of evil and roll over in the face of people who are lying and saying horrible things. But what I do think it means is also not trying to just dominate those people and shut them down in a way that forces them to say or even just stop talking, you know? Because like Charlie Kirk said, when we stop talking, that's when violence starts. And I think if we go in this with a way of trying, like with the effort of trying to shut down anyone that we're disagreeing with or shove them into the ground that we were right and they were wrong, that isn't going to solve the problem, right? I like when he said, defeat this ideology, right? And defeat this horrible way of being, right? Again, it's gone. I can't see the actual words.
Oh, well, I'm just going to put this in the Discord so you can see it yourself.
Okay.
And then I'll also go to just, whatever part you want to tell me on the screen so our audience can see it. But look, now it's in the Discord, so you can check it out yourself.
Cool.
Can you really fast just read that Russell M. Nelson quote again? That like contention never heals,
Yeah.
or what is that again?
It's that anger never persuades, hostility never heals, and contention never leads to lasting solutions.
Okay, so here's my only problem with that, and I'm working with this. I'm working through this with you. But hostility never heals. Okay, you're right. The actual hostility doesn't. But sometimes you need to stand up to a bully in order for them to stop thumping on you, so that then your body can heal from the bruises they already gave you. And I think, what were those three? Just say it one more time. I'm sorry. Anger never persuades.
Hostility never heals, and contention never leads to lasting solutions.
Now, I would say, what about the American Civil War? I mean, America has one constitution, and despite all of our flaws, we are the best alternative to anything else that I've seen out there in terms of good governance. We are wildly flawed. But one of the biggest proofs that we have is the fact that we have had elections ever since 1776. And there's been a peaceful transfer of power, all things considered, for lack of a better term. France has had 14 constitutions since we had our one. They've had 14 revolutions since we had our one. And so I look at that and I think, if we really take the tack that hostility never heals, and, okay, I do believe anger does not persuade. Okay. But with the hostility never heals and contention never, what's the last one again? I'm sorry.
The last part was, contention never leads to lasting solutions.
I look at America, I'm like, this is one pretty dang good lasting solution, and it wouldn't have existed if we hadn't contended really, really hard to the point of bloodshed. Because
but that's not even contention, that's conflict. There's a difference. I think that, like, contention is when we have, when we listen to the spirit of the devil inspiring us to say the rudest thing we can to the people that we're responding to, right? When we let our anger inspire what we say and direct how we're interacting with others, right? I think that's what he's talking about when he says contention never leads to lasting solutions, not that we should never be engaged in any kind of conflict ever, right? There's plenty of other things said by prophets about when it's appropriate to engage in conflict. So that's a thing that I think is important to bring up, because I think sometimes people will hear the counsel to be a peacemaker and they will think that it means avoid conflict. And I don't think that it does. I think it means engage in conflict in a way that recognizes you and the people you're engaging with as children of God, and does everything possible to come to a good solution that God could be happy with for both of you, right?
Okay.
It's to strive for that as much as you possibly can.
So, and I promise I'm not trying to be obtuse, Brad. I'm not trying to be obtuse. But I feel like now we're kind of doing this sex and gender argument. People all of a sudden just kind of created for ideological reasons in order to make an ideology fit within a logical framework, started saying, oh no, sex and gender aren't synonyms. No, actually gender is the outward expression as, dictated by academic, doctor money, yada, yada, this and that, academic answer. And then sex is just the biological one. So sex and gender are different. Like conflict and contention, they're synonyms, bro.
No, they're not, Carden. I don't think that they're being used that way. When we look at the context of everything that Russell M. Nelson's saying, he's saying contention never leads to lasting solutions, right? Anger never persuades, hostility never heals, and contention is the third in this group, right?
What's the difference between conflict and contention? Because, for example, the American Revolutionary War seemed really contentious to me.
Luke, you said you wanted to say something?
I did like the super chat that was coming in, and even the Revolutionary War was God inspired. It appears from 1 Nephi 13. But there is a super chat that does point out, it's from Elizabeth Baker. The prophet isn't saying not to heal or persuade, just don't use anger to do it. And we did hear reports, and I'm not saying the family was involved with this at all, but we did hear reports of the family saying like, oh yeah, we had family discussions about how Charlie was spreading hate, or the suspected shooter talked about how Charlie was spreading hate, which is just absolutely not true unless you interpret saying things that you believe apparently seems to be related to like trans issues or what he calls fascism. And calling that hateful is just that's using anger to respond to things that you disagree with. And in the instance of this person, it led to very, very bad places.
So what's the mechanism?
A widow and 2 children.
Okay, so what's the mechanism for a united society to recognize that I can't just like, because all of us agree that, okay, you're not supposed to be contentious, but then there's times like emergent situations where you have to be contentious. All right. For example, the spreading of hatred. Like all of us would believe if there was a bunch of neo-Nazis about to go commit a racial hate crime, maybe it's worth grabbing a big stick to stop them. Maybe it's worth grabbing firearms to keep them from lynching somebody, destroying property to burn a cross or whatever, right? All of us agree that, okay, well, when it gets so bad and diplomacy has failed, then conflict is necessary or contention is necessary. I'm still not totally seeing the difference between that, right? But like, how can a very liberal young man that's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like what definition does he have in the back of his mind that, wow, I can't just subjectively think that something's hatred and then now be more as morally justified as I would be in like stopping neo-Nazis because my definition of hatred is flawed. Like these words matter. So I'm still not seeing a really clear delineation between contention and conflict. And I'm also wondering how can we properly define hate or define whatever word needs to be defined. So there's some kind of stopgap in the general populace to between, there's a stopgap that stops people from doing what this young man did.
I think we do have a bit of a hammer and nail problem of just like everything gets called hate these days. Charlie says men can't become women. That's hate. Cabot gets his history on Joseph Smith badly mangled, and now that's hate. I think we need to really consider the use of that word when we're putting it out there for the right and for the left.
Yeah, I think that we need to abandon the idea that speech is violence. That just needs to go away completely. That can't exist in civil discourse. Because then, as soon as you label what the other people are saying as hate and as bad, then, oh, cool. Now we can say that those people are violent and they deserve violence. I've seen people saying that Charlie Kirk lived by the sword, he should die by the sword. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
The speech is not the sword.
Yeah, exactly. He's debating people. That is explicitly not living by the sword. And so I think that it's important that we do our best to eliminate that from the public conversation. Speech isn't violence. Violence is violence. We need to stand for truth. When I look at what it means for us to be peacemakers, it makes me think of what Christ said in the Sermon on the Mount, right? To be salt of the earth, to be a light to the world. Light shines in darkness. It has to stand for something. Like a city set on a hill cannot be hid. We need to stand for truth. We just need to do so in a way that we are not attacking other people, right? We need to be a candle, a light to bring others. We don't want to turn it into a wildfire and try to burn down everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I really, really like what you're saying. And I very much appreciate coming from someone like you who is so dedicated. Like, bro, you are the kindest, most Christ-like dude I've ever seen on Twitter. Like, to somebody will say something hateful on the Ward radio, like a response, and I'll just be like STF, you beta, and then you're just like, well, actually I can see where you're coming from, and that maybe I would like to present an alternative opinion. Like, you are the best example of like true Christ-like response in the face of just cruelty, right? So I do aspire only to your greatness in that regard, right? So I enjoy picking your brain on these things when I hear this, and I just hope everybody that does listen to this stream like absorbs a little bit of Brad Witbeck. It's more than just being Canadian. Like, there's plenty of jerk Canadians out there, bro. But anyway, you want to say something? I see you raising your hand. What's going on?
Oh, there's just a interesting thing. So I've been reading from the Time article that was just published, but a guy in the comments is mentioning that there's a difference in the way that President Nelson stated this in conference. And he said that contention never leads to inspired solutions. And in the Time article, it's lasting solutions. And that's very interesting because when his audience is members of the church, he says that contention never leads to inspired solutions. And I think that that's very accurate. And I think that contention never leading to inspired solutions is because when we let contention, when we let anger drive what we think and what we believe and what we say, that's going to make things worse. When we remember that we are all children of God, and when we are holding fast to the love of God and love for our neighbor, that will help us find the right path forward.
Okay, well, we got some super chats, and I want you to address them because some of them got some salt and pepper on them. Also, I do not live in Utah. This did happen in Utah. I live in Los Angeles. You do indeed live in Utah, Brad, and until just recently, you also lived in Utah, Luke. So, here's some of the super chats. Angela's Gentile Ben, thank you very much for the super chat. There was no message, but thank you for the super chat. Craig Nelson says Doctrine and Covenants 42:18 through 19. So I'm going to be pulling up scripture notes.
I did pull that up.
Okay, yeah, and
so I can read that. He says, I speak now unto the church, thou shalt not kill, and he that kills shall not have forgiveness in this world or the world to come. And I say thou shalt not kill, but he that killeth shall die.
Okay, so is that the root of why like Utah has maintained the death penalty for so much longer? Like, and by the way, like Spencer Cox, that was like his ending statement on his first press conference. Did you remember that? He was like,
yeah, he tweeted that out.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind the audience that Utah is the death penalty. I was like, holy crap, dude. I totally had forgotten about that Doctrine and Covenants reference. But hey, yeah, here it is right there in black and white right in front of us. Shout out, by the way, while we're doing this, to Scripture Notes. It's the coolest way of reading your scriptures online. And if you want a 10% off coupon, I think it's Ward Radio or Ward Radio 10. There's a link in the description for a free 2-week trial, but I'm going to read this again just for everybody that doesn't have their own scripture notes. It says, For behold, the Comforter knoweth all things, and beareth record of the Father and the Son. So I think it's very interesting that we talked about the difference between lasting solutions and inspired solutions. And so here a Doctrine and Covenants is invoking the use of the Comforter, also known as the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit. And then 18 says, And now, behold, I speak unto the church, thou shalt not kill, and he that kills shall not have his forgiveness in this world nor in the world to come. And again I say unto you, thou shalt not kill, but he that killeth shall die. Thou shalt not steal, and he that stealeth and will not repent shall be cast out. And then thou shalt not lie, he that lieth will not and will not repent shall be cast out. So it looks like there is indeed a scriptural basis for all of this. Thank you very much, Craig Nelson, for the super chat.
But we should even, and Jonah pointed this out on Twitter, and it goes with what I was saying earlier, we should even pray for this guy, Tyler Robinson.
and his family.
And definitely his family.
His father who turned him in.
This is going to be so hard. And that is one of the hardest parts of Christianity. And part of the reason why I think Joseph Smith had to have been inspired and quickened by the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ in a very profound way was not because of necessarily what he did overtly, but how he forgave. Like the betrayals he endured and the people that he welcomed back into full fellowship of the church that had literally turned him into his most vile and worst enemies. I just think that is beyond my understanding. Like, holy smoke, that seems so unnatural. So sometimes Christianity is unnatural, and there's a lot of people that don't think God bless their family. They think God damn this family, or God damn this person, or God damn this enemy. And we're instructed to do exactly the opposite, which is to pray for them that spitefully use us. And it's one of the most difficult aspects that I struggle with being a Christian, is understanding that and actually putting that into practice. And sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it. Like, it's so unnatural to me. I just got to fake it until I make it, and then hope that Jesus Christ smiles upon that effort. So,
well, and there's this, like, Jesus doesn't say, actually, nobody's your enemy, and actually nobody has mistreated you. You're just misunderstanding it. He says, pray for your enemies and those who curse you and despitefully use you. So it's a recognition that, like, no, we're not just sunshine and lollipops, universalist, everybody's cool, hurt people. I'm not saying that statement's not true, but just trying to, like, excuse stuff and, oh, it's fine, everything's fine. But at the same time, you bless them. So I simultaneously feel that it's appropriate to pray for the shooter, Tyler Robinson.
Yeah.
And also hope that he gets the death penalty.
Yeah.
At the same time, simultaneously.
Agreed.
And by the way, I actually think there's a very logical... I don't mean to derail this live stream to all of a sudden being a philosophical treatise on the death penalty, especially when we have these super chats we have to address. But I will say we struggled with this in California, and there was this list of 150 pastors that had signed on to abolishing the death penalty in California, because California actually had it for a long time. And I actually was interesting. I couldn't get a single one of them to come on my Problem Solver Politics show when I was at FM 98.1 on KHTS, until finally I got a representative for all of about 50 or 60 of them that called me back. And he called me back basically to inform me that, you know, this is basically just a virtue signaling letter, and none of them wanted to actually logically defend their defense of the most horrible people out there. But I did say, hey, well, ask them this, if they would come on. I'm not just some polemic right-wing conservative trying to go up against leftist, and woke pastors. This was back in 2017, 2016. Okay. I did say this though. I said, are you a man of faith yourself? And he said, oh, very much so. I'm a pastor of my own congregation. I said, okay, well, we do believe in justice and repentance, right? I can see why some people think, well, we need to be merciful in the face of justice, but do you believe in repentance, that a man must repent? And he said, oh, yes, of course. And I said, okay, if a man took blood, does he have any way in this life of repenting without giving blood? If he took life, can't he get good with God by giving life? Like saying, I will submit to the death penalty. Because then, and I actually quoted a movie, if you remember Green Mile, where the guy had been put to death in the electric chair, and then there was the obsessive cop that wanted to touch the body afterwards, and the guy smacked his hand down and said, this man is good with God and the state, because he'd been electrocuted. He paid for his murder by giving his life, and he smacked his hand and said, this guy is good with us. Like, don't touch him. I kind of look at that and I think there's a logical reason for this. Like, to truly repent, if you've taken life, you would inherently have to give it, right? If there's any kind of balance in the universe, I could see why somebody would approach that logically, right? So, anyway, we can continue. Elizabeth Baker is saying the prophet isn't saying not to heal or persuade, just don't use anger to do it. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Gentile Ben says, press forward, saints, with steadfast faith in Christ. I agree. Thank you, Ben. Miguel Olvera says, Utah's leftist-dominated school system caused this. Make no mistake, our children and youth are being corrupted by our own education system.
We have to be careful.
I was going to say,
careful.
Utah is extremely family-friendly culturally, and there's parts of this that I agree with and disagree with. Obviously, an entire state, that's I'm sure there's sectors that are very predatory, and we've all come across them.
It's the assumption. Because I know that Florida kind of tracked down, there was a couple of teachers, and there was even one in Utah, if I'm not mistaken. They're like driving on the way to their job to teach like 8-year-olds the next morning. Like, oh yeah, I'm glad Charlie Kirk got shot. Oh, this is really great. Okay. Yeah, and obviously. But that doesn't mean the whole thing. And we don't know everything about this kid's past. And to an extent, it doesn't matter that much. We all have to look at what we're doing, at what those immediately around us are doing, and make the necessary changes.
Okay.
And I think that's more helpful than making assumptions about
who
did what.
I think it would be now, of course, he's probably very angry, and rightfully so. This is a very traumatizing thing for anybody that was fans of Charlie Kirk or any of the socially conservative messaging that he espouses. And I will never spite a guy for being angry and venting a little bit. At the same time, I think what he probably means is this is a massive wake up call, and I do believe Utah does need to reconsider. I think a lot of education over the past 30 years has been a little bit on autopilot, not realizing how very toxic messaging has been Trojan horsed through education as a means to get to people's children vicariously that they couldn't have themselves. Do you get what I'm saying? And there's a lot of people who used activism. Just like, for example, I did a sociology project when I was at BYU to show how there were neo-Nazi groups that were trying to infiltrate the Boy Scouts as a means of influencing young men with righteous principles of, the 88 words, the 14 whatevers, whatever their neo-Nazi ideology was. And we were actually able to pull up websites and chat groups and forums where they were posting applications to the Boy Scouts of America saying, hey, if you want to influence the next generation of young men, consider becoming a scout leader. And they actually had the link to the Boy Scouts of America application. So like I've seen this firsthand, how groups that have toxic ideologies try and recruit youth. And I think the educational systems of America for a long time kind of went on autopilot and let a lot of very toxic people on the other side slip through in a blind spot. So I think that's what Miguel Olvera is getting at, and I think that's true. David Lizette says, how can we be peacemakers with people who want to kill us for the ideas we hold? Thousands of people are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk for his ideas that many conservatives and members of the church hold. I punt that one to Brad.
Yeah, no. This is a fantastic question. I think this is a very good thing to be thinking of. How can we be peacemakers with people who want to kill us for the ideas we hold? And thousands of people are celebrating the deaths of Charlie Kirk for his ideas that many conservatives and members of the church hold. I have been absolutely disturbed by the number of people I have seen celebrating his death or saying that he deserved it. And the hundreds of thousands of likes that I am seeing on these kinds of posts, I think it would be foolish to pretend that this isn't some widespread thing that is actually happening. There are people who are celebrating the death of someone that they disagreed with politically. And that's bad. We're in a really bad spot as a nation. So I think it's up to us to figure out what are we going to do about this. I think it's an important question to ask. How can we be peacemakers with people like that? I think the first thing to recognize is that people who actually want us dead for the ideas we hold are actually exceedingly rare, right? I don't think that they're as common as the likes of things on social media make it appear. I think people are pretty desensitized to reality when they're liking things like that on social media. And I think the real solution is to talk to your neighbors It is to get outside, touch grass, recognize, hey, these people are an extreme minority, but they're not a minority that we can ignore, right? We shouldn't just pretend they don't exist, but we need to find a way to de-escalate things and stand for truth. I've been doing my own fair share of pointing out to people that they're incorrect, because I'll see them saying, oh, Charlie Kirk deserved it because he said XYZ thing. Here's a clip. And then I'm like, yeah, the clip doesn't say what you just said it says.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You need to recognize that you're lying in this
Here's
instance.
proof positive that Charlie Kirk absolutely hates gay people and wants them all exterminated. And the clip says, like, actually, I have many gay friends. I just respectfully disagree with some premises of their marriage. You know, and it's just like,
yeah, it's really ridiculous to see. But I think one thing that I want to try to be doing myself, and I'm going to continue praying about this and figuring it out, because I think, frankly, David Lizette, I don't know if you'd prefer Dave or David.
David.
This is a question we need to be praying about and asking Heavenly Father. We need to be asking God. We need to be talking with our bishops. We need to talk with our elders' quorums. Ask this question. How do we do this? How do we be peacemakers in these situations? Because I think that is what will lead us to inspired solutions, because it may look different on individual basis, right? It may look different on even the individual interaction we're dealing with. So I hope that that's a satisfactory answer, that I think the way we can be peacemakers is to turn to God. Don't let anger be what drives our decision-making, but let the Spirit help guide us.
Okay, next one's going to go to Luke, my man.
I don't even know what it is. All right.
Okay, it says Jeffrey Lewis, thank you for the super chat. It says, is conflict the root? A conflict can lead to action, contention, or peacemaking. Both can lead to a fight, but are you being contentious or a peacemaker? Again, see, I don't still see the functional difference between conflict and contention.
And I think that's why in the scriptures we have the example of Jesus Christ, not just like the philosophical treatise of Jesus Christ. We have, and the scriptures, I mean, you could boil the gospel down to a couple paragraphs and we would be fine with that. You would have the essentials there. But I think the reason why we have, my son a couple days ago asked me how many pages were in the scriptures, so I counted up the quad for him. It's like 2,000 something pages once you add in the topical guide and stuff. And the reason why we have that is you need to see it in action to actually see how it works. Words will only take you so far. Theory will only take you so far. And then you try to see it working out in action. How did Jesus Christ respond to these situations? When is it appropriate to turn over the tables at the temple versus he who has no sin, let him cast the first stone? And you have to use the Spirit. You have to use other examples. And this earth is meant to be a test. It's meant to be where we learn this stuff, not just like, all right, here's all the answers, just like fill in the right bubbles on the test. You're learning how to do this and to act this out as you read and as you go through life. It's supposed to be kind of paradoxical.
Okay, so just really fast, we're actually going to do this in real time, and this is kind of interesting. This is the first time I've actually done this, and we're just going to do it live. Next super chat, actually, I'm going to skip a couple and we'll get back to them. But I got scripture notes on the screen, and somebody just said, ask Daniel on scripture notes, contention versus conflict. So we're actually going to do this live. All right, so we click on AI, and I'm just going to do this now because I'm really curious to see. We have a faith that's rooted in scripture, and I want to know what the original actual documents say here, right? So we're going to come down here, and I'm literally just going to type in and say, like, what's the difference between contention and conflict? Because I'm not trying to be obtuse, but I'm struggling to recognize that, right? So here it is what is the difference between contention is what we said, and conflict, right? Question mark. So here's Daniel, pumps out an answer. I did this once before just to make sure that it didn't say something like, I don't understand your prompt, but here it is. And I want to see what it comes up with in both times it said this, but it's really interesting. It says, great question. In scriptural and gospel context, contention and conflict are related, but they aren't the same thing. Here's how to understand the difference, especially using language and teachings from scriptures and leaders in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Contention is usually when seen as a negative form of conflict where anger, pride, and the spirit of division are present. Contention is described in the scriptures as something to avoid, often associated with lack of the spirit. For example, Jesus taught. Okay, so that mirrors a little bit what Brad was talking about there. And he says, "For verily I say unto you," in 3 Nephi 11:29, "he that hath the spirit of contention is not of me, but is of the devil, who is the father of contention. He stirreth up the hearts of men to contend with anger one with another," which would then functionally mean that he who is operating without the spirit in conflict, okay, is not of me. Doesn't necessarily mean that having conflict is inherently bad. And then he says here, contention is linked to anger and being stirred up against each other. Now, in the second search, it says conflict, by contrast, is a more neutral word. It simply means a difference of opinion, interests, or priorities. Conflict is inevitable because we're all unique as individuals with our own perspectives. The scriptures and church leaders acknowledge that a conflict isn't itself sinful or inherently destructive. It's how we handle that conflict that matters. And then here's a supporting example. Even the disciples had disagreements in Acts 15:36. So when we go to Acts 15:36, right here, as it shows on your screen, it now says, "And some days after, Paul said unto Barnabas, Let us go again and visit our brethren in every city where we have preached the word of the Lord, and see how they do." They tarried there a space. I don't necessarily see how that one applies as much. But anyway, super cool tool. This is so that's interesting. Brad, you were right. So conflict is seemingly a more neutral word then. And contention insinuates pride and anger. I'll be honest with you. I thought they were kind of just synonyms, and I feel colloquially most people think they are.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, I think most of the time it's used in a synonymous way. Like when you look up the definitions, there are ways they can definitely be used as synonyms. So I totally get that there is confusion on this, but when I look at how it's used scripturally and by our prophets, there's a distinction that seems significant to me.
Okay, so I got to burn through these super chats really fast because there's a buttload of them, but we'll cruise. Brian Koopman said, "I was a correctional officer in Utah a few years ago. Cameron Kirk's, I think he meant Charlie Kirk's killer will get inmate punishment. He will have it coming to him." Hey, inmate punishment is brutal. I've seen insane violence, not just from inmates, but from unfortunately, the peace officers themselves in the Utah correctional facility. I saw a sheriff bust a guy's freaking skull against a tile wall and knock out some of his teeth when I was in there. Of course, in the bathroom where the cameras weren't, because they're just as much a gang as anybody inside. But anyway, Brian Koopman, thank you very much. By the way, I'm not saying you were part of that gang, Brian. You are an erudite and educated and lovely member of the Ward Radio Wigwam, who can do no wrong, I am sure. So anyway, Sheffield DSG says, "We are at the moment in the Book of Mormon where secret combinations committed evil. The people let it lead them to iniquity, except when they chose to root out that evil amongst them and not let it fester and grow." How do you feel about that one, Brad?
I think that's a really good point, that in order to be peacemakers, we need to be standing for truth. We need to not let iniquity sneak in, like you were talking about earlier, Cardin. I think that there are things that have been allowed to fester and grow in ways that they shouldn't have, and we need to cut it out. Right now, I mean, I'm grateful that we have the schooling situation for our kids that we have. Like, my daughter's teacher is in our ward. We know them well. Like, we don't need to worry about who is teaching our family members and our kids because we know them, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can do. We can watch and get to know the teachers of our children, get to know our communities, get to know all of the people around us rather than just going through life on autopilot. I think we need to be aware. That's part of being a peacemaker.
Now, here's two more for you from the same person. Luke, you can take 30 seconds on this. And then there's a really interesting one by Blake Westmoreland. Mike Smith says, as angry as I am, Alma 24 and the anti-Nephi Lehis keep coming to mind. We have to be peacemakers at all costs. But the anti-Nephi Lehis did send their sons out to absolutely wreck those that wanted to do that and them harm. Shrug. There is some mixed messaging from the scriptures.
Dude, I'm so glad that he brought up that second half of it in the second super chat. Because that's what keeps coming to mind for me. Since I've had kids, I've started reading the anti-Nephi Lehite story a little bit differently. And this might sound surprising coming from the guy who's like, we should be peacemakers all the time. That has been something I've been trying to say a lot recently. But I think that the anti-Nephi Lehites, they made the oath that they did because of their own actions, right? They made that oath because they had delighted in bloodshed, but it passed on that responsibility to defend themselves and their people and the Nephites to their kids, right? It's not as though the conflict ceased just because they laid down their weapons of war, right?
And hopefully I can make an appropriate extrapolation here. There seem to be some people who kind of suggest like you need to get off of social media. Like the whole thing's bad, everything like that. And then there's kind of people on the other side like, nah, social media, fine. I think it's more of an anti-Nephi Lehi situation where there are people where it's just not good for them to touch it. Yeah. Like the anti-Nephi Lehites and the weapons. On the other hand, you still do need people, not that you need every time somebody makes a comment, it needs to be responded to, it needs to be debunked, it needs to be destroyed. But you still do need people participating in these conversations, just like apparently there needed people to be participating in the Nephite wars to protect their homeland. And so there's not a one size fits all, but you do need to be cognizant of where you fall on that spectrum.
Now, here's a very interesting one. And this is where I think our society, especially the analog kind of boomer society that precedes us, hasn't quite adapted to the internet yet, but I'd be really curious to see how this plays out. Blake Westmoreland said, as a society, we need to know what classes he took at UVU as well as his YouTube watch history and the comments made across platforms to prevent this. I would actually be very curious, and I don't know how we would glean this information without some kind of draconian overreach of the government. However, with some cooperation from social media platforms, and who knows, those data mining centers in Utah probably already have this information anyway. I would be really curious to see if like an AI model couldn't just go over all of the influencers that he was engaged in and not see if there wasn't a common thread and a common recipe of this cocktail to online radicalization, so that those influencers could be approached and say, you know what, bro, obviously this is not your fault. This is an individual's action, but just so you know, you're 30% of this guy's watch time. Now, that's either a very good thing because hopefully your reasoning kept him from doing something worse longer, or maybe you need to take some stock about how you speak about others, and have some self-reflection about how you come across or whatever. Now, we do not believe that the son is guilty of the father's punishment. We do believe everybody has their individual agency and so on and so forth. But to a certain extent, we can't wage an entire drug war where we arrest the dealers and have mercy upon the addicts and then not say like, okay, maybe everybody calling Charlie Kirk a Nazi has a little bit of responsibility too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that rhetoric needs to be toned down. We can't be calling and we need to make sure it's toned down on both sides. Stop calling everyone on your political opposite. I do think it's worse on the left, but stop calling your political opponents threats to democracy, right? Stop saying that they're going to destroy our nation, right? Like, go after the ideologies and show how your ideology is better. I think that is the way forward. but stop demonizing political opponents.
Okay, that's Brad's opinion. Me, I say no. I'm just kidding. So here we go. Thank you, Blake Westmoreland. Lane Pitcher says, even when unwanted, speaking truth is kindness. Honest words to those we disagree with can bring peace into their lives. Honesty is love.
Yes, I love this because I think that there is a thing. I see people resistant to the teaching of being a peacemaker, and I think it's only because they misunderstand what it means. I think we have seen Satan try to get people to think that love your neighbor means agree with your neighbor in everything or else you hate them, right? And so I love that Lane is pointing this out. Even when unwanted, speaking truth is kindness. Honest words to those we disagree with can bring peace into their lives. Honesty is love. I love this because truth is love. Find ways to make sure that you're not saying it in an angry way or to shut someone down, but you have to stand for truth.
Okay, so here's
and as long as you're not doing it like some of the pastors, like, oh, we love the Mormons and that's why we tell them they're going to hell and Jesus doesn't love them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like as long as you're doing the honesty with love, you usually can't go wrong, even if people tell you that you are.
Yeah, because without charity, you're nothing. Right? The scriptures have made that very clear to us. We need to have charity in our communication.
Now, here's a very interesting, heartbreaking, but also inspiring.
One thing to point out about what we were just talking about, he wasn't a UVU student. He, I think, attended UVU for a semester a while back, but he was at Utah State.
So he was familiar
and maybe
with
the East
campus.
Campus.
Yeah. So Shaozen SC says something very interesting. I am an LDS father with a 19-year-old trans-identifying child. He came unhinged last night, making this about how oppressed he and in danger his community is. I responded with love, holding my ground, and an hour later he apologized.
Hey.
That sounds like a perfect example right there.
Fantastic job, Shaozen. Dude, that's
both
amazing.
The things. Yeah,
standing for truth, but doing so with love.
I really wish more people would say that because, you can't let them hold your humanity and your logic hostage, but at the same time, you need to do it with love. Good job, bro. Sheffield.
Well, I'm just fascinated by how a person who has spoken against trans ideology being taught, being shot, prompted a person to believe that trans people were in danger. That's
that's
fascinating.
It's cry-bullyism. No, it's cry-bullyism.
It's not that I completely don't understand it. I'm just remarking on the state that we are in right now in people's thought patterns.
Yeah. So Sheffield DSG says we must peacefully. It just shows that the coping mechanism when something happens that threatens their ideology is to say that I'm under attack or I am in danger. It just shows how we've so completely drank from the cup of cry-bullyism that now has become their de facto coping mechanism.
And one thing that I think is important to do, help them recognize that that's not the case. I think that's what Shaozen was able to do with his kid, was help his kid see that, I am not attacking you. I hold these beliefs, but I am not attacking you, right? I love you still, and I care about you, and there are others who do. So I think that...
And also somehow introduce the idea gently that you're delusional into that conversation where appropriate. Not about the trans thing. You should have that conversation, I think. But like, look, kid, a person arguing against trans ideology being taught, getting shot, is the opposite of trans people being in danger. It's the people against, quote unquote, the trans people are in danger. Consider how your brain is working right now.
Words need to have meanings, and danger needs to have its proper meaning, or else the signs on all the boxes of TNT mean nothing. So, okay, Sheffield DSG says, we must peacefully call it evil and not allow it to pass under the guise of politics. We must be more willing to be public and private disciples of Christ, just as Charlie did. I agree wholeheartedly, thank you. And Scott B says, conflict often arises when two parties have competing interests. Often, peace is only achieved when one side makes concessions and loses, so the other can, quote, win. I do feel that the right had that happen for a long time, very hard. And Charlie Kirk was one of the first that broke through that. And I think Jordan Peterson was one of the first that broke through that, though Jordan Peterson was more of a philosopher than necessarily a political commentator. But I do think for a long time, people on the more socially traditional side of the argument just ceded ground, hoping to make the conflict go away, not realizing that they're just going to start using contention as a political weapon against you in hopes that you cede ground peacefully, because that's easier than actually having to go to kinetic war with you. And then it was finally when we started talking and reasoning our way back and regaining ground that all of a sudden they went truly kinetic and showed like what is at the root of that ideology and is inconsistent with persuasion, open discourse, so on and so forth. So Rachel Hudson says, thank you for covering this and reminding all of us how important our faith is. Well, thank you very much, Rachel, for your super chat. It keeps our channel going. Dave Gray says, where was the right wing's outrage when Dems were being killed? The people from Minnesota. Actually, I think the people from Minnesota, fortunately, were also pretty resoundingly denounced. Political. That's been a very common comparison right now. I think the only difference was there was a lot more Charlie Kirk was just so much more high profile, like his public, his ubiquitous presence in the political discourse on social media, especially with young people, just far outweighed. There were Republicans that were shot in New Jersey. Steve Scalise famously was shot years ago at the congressional baseball game and so on and so forth. But I would argue less people know who Steve Scalise is than Charlie Kirk. Less people know who the Hartmans were in Minnesota than Charlie Kirk. There was other great civil rights leaders in the 1960s, but less people know who Medgar Evers was than know who MLK was, simply just due to popularity. So I don't think, Dave, that it's that there's a lack of outrage against political violence. I think there's just a lack of, they don't know who all the players are on the chessboard, and Charlie Kirk was just simply a more well-known player. Just like there's been other political assassinations, but JFK, a Democrat, was just so much more well-known and beloved at a key time than maybe someone by the likes of, well, Abraham Lincoln's not a good example, but like Theodore Roosevelt, but also Theodore Roosevelt's not a good example because he technically wasn't actually killed. His assassination attempt was unsuccessful. So anyway, I think it boils down to public awareness, not necessarily political ideology or a lack of a renunciation of political violence. So anyway, Michael.
Yeah, and I think part of it has to do with proximity, So for me, I wasn't aware of some of those things because, like you said, I just don't know those people. But my brother-in-law was there. He was on the front row at UVU. He was listening to Charlie Kirk speak as he got shot. Like this is the kind of thing where, at least for me, part of the reason I'm talking about this right now is because it's very, very personal. Like that. Members of my own family were there, it's crazy. And I think Cardin really hits the nail on the head that a lot of it has to do with just how well known these people are. And so when it gets brought to our attention, hey, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, Elder Corbett has been teaching us what constitutes contention, says Michael William Zatar. Anything that is antichrist is contention, i.e. contention is of the devil. Does someone agitate against the gospel, against the prophet, against any and all truth? Great insight, Michael. And then Tiomner says conflict isn't automatically sinful. It's the clash of ideas, wills, or forces. Contention is more than disagreement. It implies pride, anger, or enmity, not just differing viewpoints. It fuels division and drives away the spirit. Thank you.
I love that. I think that's a very, very good reminder that the spirit of contention is something driven by pride and anger. And frankly, by not viewing those around you as children of God. I think this is a big thing that President Nelson has also been talking about while speaking about being a peacemaker. He's also reemphasized many times that our first and foremost identity needs to be as children of God.
Yeah. So last two super chats right here. We're already deep into overtime. Quasia 27. Ooh, who wants to fill in for Jonah as the ward clerk? Luke, do you want to do it? Brad, do you want to do it?
Yes, but I cannot see.
It's Quasia.
Oh, here we are.
27.
Here we are. I found
yes.
it. Yes, we would like to welcome Quasia 27 to the Ward Radio Wigwams. While those would like to welcome brother or sister Quasia, please do so with the W slap down in the chat.
Slap down. Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. Okay, and then Plaid, last comment here says, my motto lately is live, love, lots of reasons, part to do what I'm learning in the temple. I like straight/narrow with a rod. Oh, like eternal round, live through Christ, love like him. Oh, I guess somebody figured out their general conference talk for 2032. You know, let's just
got it in your back pocket.
Yeah, for real. That's actually very good. I like it. And then finally, Nathaniel Wilkerson decided to get his jab in here and says, can Trump change his rhetoric to bring us together? I would actually argue that a lot of what people understand Trump's rhetoric is the filter through what media they see it. I subscribe simultaneously to Fox News's YouTube channel and like Benny Johnson on their community post, but also Now This. Are you guys familiar with the political channel Now This and Now This Impact? Mm-hmm. And out of the exact same speech, the community posts that come out of Now This in comparison, which is an anti-Trump outlet, in comparison to, you know, Benny Johnson or the late Charlie Kirk's or Fox News's or the Daily Wire's community posts on the exact same speech, so show how completely malleable somebody's interpretation of the exact same thing is. And so, Nathaniel, I would say I don't think Trump needs to change his rhetoric as much as you need to probably broaden your algorithm.
Cardin, I think there's some truth in what you're saying, but I also would love if Trump changed his rhetoric to bring us together a little bit more.
He's a football coach. Yeah, no, I do not. I do not think his skill is not. He is political chemotherapy. Like his skill is not. He's no Brad Witbeck, and I think there's a lot of people for a lot of years that have thought, but I will say this. So yeah, I mean that's criticism, sure, fine.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think we should point out is this isn't like Trump shouldn't start engaging in niceness culture, right?
Yeah,
I think niceness culture in and of itself is founded on lies. Like niceness culture is founded on don't be kind, don't be, just be nice, right? Don't really say what you think. Don't say what's actually true, because comfort is more important than truth in niceness culture. I think we need to adjust our culture to be more about kindness, where truth is more important than comfort, but we still be charitable in the delivery of that truth.
Well, and also the only reason kind of why I just think it's a tall order isn't actually just because it's Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump has shown a lot of uncharacteristic humanity in this by being just deeply affected. You can just tell, like, this has deeply affected Donald Trump. But you have to remember, he was shot at too. Like,
yeah,
there's just a point. If you're asking the guy who was just shot at 6 months ago in an assassination attempt to be sympathetic towards, I don't know. There's a point where I'm like, you know, Jesus is probably the only one that could have done that. So I'm not excusing behavior. I'm just saying I don't know if I could. Therefore, I don't know how much I can require of others. Devin Glenn says we need to figure out how to talk about eliminating transgenderism a la Michael Knowles in a mature way without getting squeamish. This isn't hateful. And by that, by you say eliminated, I think what you mean is the toxic recruitment of
what he means by that is the idea that it's acceptable to believe that men can be women and women can be men.
Yes.
Not that you go to jail or something for believing it, but just that it is not in the Overton window anymore. which I
Yes.
think is something that needs to happen in society.
Yes,
And it has way too many underpinnings. It goes back to Freud, it goes back to Rousseau, it goes back to Marx. These ideas and why it's become such an important thing in our society.
Yeah.
And it's completely not gospel based
yes.
worldview that it's coming from.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it should be pretty plain to the majority of people interacting with this that it is not an ideology that is helpful or good for the people engaging in it and involved in it. It's a difficult thing to figure out how to approach, but I hope that people can take the example of one of our earlier super chats from Shausen, who was talking about how he spoke with truth to his son. I have people that I work with who are trans, and they have heard the language of eliminating transgenderism, right? And I think this goes back to Cardin's point, widen who you are listening to, because there have been people who twisted that into eliminate transgenders.
Yes.
Which I don't think is what Michael Knowles is saying. I don't think is what Cardin or Luke are saying at all. And I want to make sure that we're abundantly clear about that.
And it
I think
behooves
that
us to go out of our way to try and make sure we clarify that.
Exactly. To show like, hey, yeah, no, we care about you people enough to tell you what we believe and what we think, and we care that you guys are okay. We want to make sure that no one is hunting you down, right? People care about you, they love you, and they want you to be the happiest you can be in this life.
And I really do like Jesus Christ's admonition to, take the beam out of your eye before you see the mote in somebody else's eye. Really, I hope, as Spencer Cox said, that this becomes a moment for just like both sides to start policing themselves instead of trying to take the other side out of context. And I feel that's actually kind of happening. And something that needs to happen on the right is, yes, as much as the right currently right now is the largest defender of free speech in America, I would say, and that is a tantamount, paramount, bedrock, beyond a third rail principle of the Constitution that must be defended at all costs. With that gift and that right and that privilege granted to us by God and the founding fathers, that needs to be exercised, but it behooves us to do it in the softest, most approachable, most digestible, most kind way possible. Oftentimes a lot of people say like, oh, you can't regulate my speech, I should be able to say whatever the hell I want. And you know what, to a certain extent that's true, and I will defend your right to say whatever the hell I want, but it behooves you as an individual to make sure that when you are given that potential weapon, when you are given that potential that right and that privilege, that you exercise that right as socially responsibly as you can. And I count myself responsible for that and commit to do as good a job in that in the future as I can. And it behooves me to go out of my way to make sure that my messaging is as digestible as possible for those that would maybe even be considered my political enemies, but also fellow children of God. So like when I address transgenderism, things like that, I have to try and think, if I say the terminology eliminating transgenderism, I have to be aware that people are going to A, purposely take it out of context because they hate me, they're cynical, they're not Christian, and they're horrible, and they're toxic. But B, there might be innocent people out there who seek the truth but know not where to find it, as Joseph Smith said, right, that may hear that or a clip of that or a repost of that and not realize what I meant. So it behooves me to go out of my way and say, eliminating the recruitment of innocence into a toxic ideology while simultaneously loving those already involved.
And I think part of what you're saying here, Cardin, is what the scriptures mean when they say to be wise as serpents but harmless as doves. It's like, hey, you need to understand that there are serpents out there who will be bad and will falsely engage with you and will twist things you say.
No, you misquoted that. Hold on.
To be wise as serpents but harmless as doves? That's in scripture.
No. I'm here, and here's my study Book of Mormon. Do you know what verse that was? Because I had it marked yesterday. it says, okay, the angel, okay. There's my translation. I have the modern millennial translation. Apparently previously it said, why is this serpent so? In mine, it just says, be Brad Witbeck. That's
nice.
That's my translation right there.
Nice.
So, that was a boomer joke. That was so bad. And this is a copy of the Book of Enoch. It's not even the Book
I was going to say that looked a little flat.
I was like, Carden, that's like a super famous phrasing. Like, I'm sure I'm wrong sometimes, but I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong about this.
I know you woke up early to do the live stream. But.
That's funny. That was such a dad joke. It was horrible. And then the last one right here, Lord Beef 21 says, one small thing. Why are people making funny memes on bullet casings now? Sad state of affairs. Hey, I agree with you. As Spencer Cox said, this is either the opening of a beautiful chapter and the end of a dark era, or the opening of a dark chapter. I, of course, butchered that quote. But I think a lot of that just depends on us. And Nathaniel Wickerson also brings up the point that sadly violence breeds more violence. And it's true. And it is on us. Like, it is on us as a people. Like, politics are downstream from culture. And we don't choose politics because we aren't the congressmen. But the congressmen only behave basically according to the reward structure of what we establish in culture. So we don't influence politics as directly as we would like, but we sure as hell influence the culture. So it is up to us as a people. And I think the tip of that spear needs to be members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith told the women of the Relief Society that they need to lead the women of the secular world around them and not be led by the women of the secular world around them. And I think that admonition applies to the priesthood as well. We need to be the tip of the spear, the salt that giveth the plate its savor in this effort of being peacemakers. And who knows, maybe Russell M. Nelson, God bless him, this could have what we all considered a bunch of annoying peacemaker talks 10 years ahead of their time might have only been 2 years ahead of their time.
I thought they were based and awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So any last thoughts before we go, Brad?
Oh, just there was an interesting thing brought up by, Stacker on X.
I had him blocked for 2 years now, I think.
Well, maybe this can help solve that.
Yeah. Okay.
He posted something really interesting just the other day in response to everything that's been going on here.
Okay.
He mentioned how in the scriptures, how it talks about us being the salt of the earth and how salt preserves meat, and how we can preserve society by living truth, right? And I thought that was a really interesting thing that, it doesn't even take a lot of salt to, the salt to meat ratio. You don't need more salt than you have meat to preserve it, right? Yeah. And so seeing that God has us in the world here as salt to preserve it, I think living the truth is what will solve it, right?
Okay, so you're saying Stacker graduated out of internet troll and into part-time philosopher? Is that what you're
I hope
saying?
so. That would be great. Now, there's some more stuff coming out about the shooter
hit me.
Our group chat. Have you seen this?
No. What does it say? And have you vetted it already?
It looks like it's mostly coming from Facebook profile stuff.
Oh, yes. No, I don't put pictures of shooters.
Oh, no. I'm not saying we put the picture up. I'm saying there's some information that we've learned.
Oh, well, tell me. Then, what is it?
So, there's some interesting stuff in here. We don't really have anything confirming whether or not he's a member of the church. It sounds like his father is, or whatever minister turned him in. I don't know whether they were referring to ministers as in this is his own teacher, or if they used minister in place of a word like bishop or something.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of just commentary on his family, supposedly oldest of 3 boys, different scholarships, everything from his ACT score, which seemed very high, and with family that would explain how he was so close to gun culture, with, family history of people that received extensive trainings therefore, and so on and so forth. There's pictures of different memes that he created and humor that he engaged in that basically I just chose not to perpetuate. It wasn't that I was ignoring it. I just chose not to perpetuate it. One thing I will bring up, though, is Kate Alvey does bring up this is probably going to be a different episode for a different day that I want to do with Kate.
I put the graph in the Discord.
Oh, you put the graph in the Discord. Okay, I was about to say that is something that we really can talk about, that I think would be totally appropriate. And it is disturbing, and this is one of those things that hopefully we end up doing away with in our Brad Witbeck led and inspired charge of being kind and not nice.
Bro, it is literally the prophet saying these things.
Look, I don't have access to the prophet. I have access to you. So here we go.
You tell him to say it, Brad.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah. Here's figure 2. And this actually comes from a really interesting study on, quote, assassination culture. The percentage of students nationally who at least rarely accept all 3 disruptive tactics over the next 6 years. 1, shouting down a speaker to prevent them from speaking on campus. 2, blocking other students from attending a campus speech. And then 3, using violence to stop a campus speech. Look how it has grown. It is a disturbing 71% of students think that it is okay to shout down a speaker to prevent them from speaking on campus. And that is because, Brad, you said silence is violence. Words are violence. There is a cost in measurable quantifiers, not just anecdotes, but in speech, to this leftist toxic ideology that words are violence. Words are not. Mm-hmm. They're not. I'm sorry. Now, words are deeds. I have said that on our show, and it doesn't mean they don't carry weight. It doesn't mean they do not hurt. It doesn't mean all of that other stuff, but you cannot equate those two things. That needs to end. That has been one of the cultural slogans that I do believe was permitted by niceness culture and assisted in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. No matter, there's no way of getting out of that. Our 20 years of saying that what's the exact slogan? Words are violence, or you said it earlier in the live stream.
Oh, just the idea that speech is violence.
Speech is violence. There we are. Yes. That has to go. And there's now measurable quantifiers that show a disturbing amount of people just simply willing to shout down a speaker to prevent them from speaking on campus. There's other alternatives and coping mechanisms. For example, leaving the quad where he's speaking, or joining the protesters up in the corner in their section. And I'm down with rabble rousing, but like over shouting down, that's just a different level, right? 3rd, blocking other students from attending a campus speech. That's a violation. The first one's a violation of freedom of speech, shouting down a speaker. The second is freedom of association. You can't be blocking other students from attending a campus speech. There's free agency. There's a religious reason not to do it. There's a constitutional reason not to do it. And then 3rd, this one is disturbing. Using violence to stop a campus speech. Mm-hmm. And it's gone up. In 2022, it was only 20%. In 2023, 27%. 2024, 32%. 2025, 34%. I really hope that spikes downwards, because you have a bunch of Gen Z and Gen Alpha that realizes their online rhetoric, when it actually turns into something real, is wildly destructive. And goddamn, every person that has been involved in perpetuating and glorifying this ideal that has created that uptick that we see on our screen, that's horrible. And thank you, Kate Alvey, for bringing that to our attention. If you haven't subscribed to his channel yet, you guys have to check out him and Baylor Johnson in All Those in Favor. So anyway, any other last comments before we get out of here, Luke and Brad?
We did have a previous super chat asking about like hand signals or something that we deferred until later. So we can bring that up really quick just to honor that super chat if you want. There's a little video. I put it in the Discord before we even started the live stream, just under the Fox and Friends one, from Frank Turek. It was a little like conspiracy theory.
Yeah, wasn't
Apparently
that
people are
debunked?
saying that Frank Turek was like coordinating with somebody.
Oh gosh.
They saw that he moved in some way right before the shot happened,
Look,
and they
Yeah, he
decided
like
that it
adjusted his
must have-
hat and scratched his face, and somehow that was the signal.
I will never
This is
hold
kind
on,
of
hold on.
bogus, guys.
I will never put at the feet of conspiracy what can be explained by incompetence. And based off of his incompetent understanding of our faith and his speeches on different campuses around here, I do not think Frank Turek is competent enough to have conspired against Charlie Kirk.
Oh God!
Like it's just. Like,
I
I'm
don't think
sorry.
he's evil enough.
Yes.
How's that?
How about both? I think he's neither evil nor competent enough. Like he's a fair uniformed officer, not a covert spy. He needs to be respected. He does great tours, and he puts himself out there, which similar to Charlie Kirk gives us something that we can all talk about and can all speak on. So I have nothing but respect for what Charlie Kirk does. But based off of his misunderstandings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I don't think that he's at all involved in this. But here, I'll put the video up on the screen. Here we go. Frank Turek states, and we will assist him in this effort of, quote, clearing his name. The viral accusations against Dr. Frank Turek are categorically false. Dr. Turek was at Utah Valley University as part of Charlie Kirk's team, standing with him as a close friend and a mentor. Their bond was marked by deep respect and unwavering support. Like everyone else, we want Charlie's assassin brought swiftly to justice, but reckless and false accusations only distract from the truth and dishonor Charlie's memory. Out of respect for the gravity of this tragedy, Dr. Turek is not available for media interview at this time. I think that was a great statement.
Yeah.
No.
And it makes me think of something, not to make this go too long, but I've seen some people being like, how did this shooter get away for so long? And I think part of it is because of that guy who claimed to be the shooter right at the beginning, right? That old guy in the audience.
Now, here is just a little interesting exercise before we go. Look at the first comment underneath this. Explain all those right hand movements then. Hat, then ear. Very deliberate. Put it to rest and tell us. Right? That totally reminds me of the Aaron Shrinian problem. When just like LDX was going hard at Aaron Shrinian, saying, oh, well, really? Well, then just put it to rest and go out and do our purity statement thingy, right? Like how do we
Well, those are way different.
that? No, the attitude, the I will just constantly accuse, and then when you say no in a very kind and good way, say like, well, put it to rest. Then what was it? Like how do you fight that morally?
Well, no, I don't think the attitude's the problem. Some things do need to be put to rest, and other things are crazy conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
And
well, all I'm saying,
Frank
though,
has
is that
no pattern. He adjusted his hat and scratched his face.
yes,
That's nothing. That's a nothing.
no, I agree
There's
with you.
nothing there.
But this is what I'm saying though, is like if you go back and look at this graph and you say a disturbing amount of people are now willing to engage in just shouting somebody down, which is a forceful disengagement in freedom of speech. I don't think it's a proper exercise of freedom of speech just to dismiss an argument in an appeal to authority. Right, or dismiss an argument in another fallacious claim or whatever, right? So I just, like, how do you combat the people that just won't listen and just keep badgering? Because it is a problem on X, and it toxifies the waters of the public sphere. I saw it happen during the Aaron Shrinian event. I now see it happening in the comments under Frank Turek. I just kind of wonder what's the practical application of our faith and our beliefs on those kind of people that just, they're so loud and just so toxic and won't take the reasonable answer, but they inflame so badly the public discourse in a way that leads to things like Charlie Kirk. Like how... Is it just this necessary evil we just have to accept? Is there anything that we can do as Christians to be the salt that giveth the meat its savor? Like, I don't know. How do you deal with that?
I don't know. Well, to an extent, there's just people you kind of got to ignore.
Yeah, I think
move on.
when we look back at President Nelson's talk, he talks about how there are times where it's appropriate to heed them not, right?
Okay.
And-
Yeah, fair enough. I guess fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. And I think in some of those, like, I will find people that I'm like, man, I don't have time to tell them how wrong they are. But
Well, my
also,
only concern is
if
this.
I engage, it will amplify them
I know,
based
but,
on how social media works right now.
but here's my only concern. Like, so right now, let's just say this is categorically false. We know Frank Turek didn't do that. Okay. It's not part of his character. It's not part of, and this is good because it's not part of Mormon history. But now I'm worried. So many stories that are in the zeitgeist about Joseph Smith that we're combating in Mormonism are just garbage conspiracy theories that were created in the 1830s, made it into Edie Howe's stupid book, and then now evangelicals are recycling them 200 years later. So it's like heeding them not. I get that might be a temporary fix, but then it just goes into this weird anti-Frank Turek bin that he's just going to have to chase down the rest of his life and be constantly apologizing for not having assisted in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, in the same way that Joseph Smith has to constantly apologize for not being a treasure digger. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I get that.
I get what you're saying. I think that is a consequence of freedom of speech, right? That's just going to happen. When we have freedom to say anything, people are going to say dumb things, and we just kind of have to deal with that. Yeah. We don't have a opportunity to remove that without removing the ability to speak truth as well. That's part of the consequences of living in a free and good society.
Okay,
is that we have to allow some people are going to say crazy things.
Okay, before we go, what's the name of your cool book coming out? And then Luke, what's the name of your YouTube channel people can tune into?
Luke, go first.
The name of the YouTube channel is Doctrine and Governance, and I do have a little quick 7-minute video with some thoughts on Charlie up there right now.
Okay, cool, rock on. And you, my man, Brad, hit me.
I think I want to close this by just saying that I think the way that we handle ourselves in light of what has just happened is very important. I think we need to make sure that we do not give in to anger and that we move forward, letting the Spirit guide our actions and what we choose to do and how we choose to behave. I think that Charlie Kirk, he was engaging in debate with people. He was in many ways a peacemaker by seeking to have conversation instead of having kinetic conflict with others, And so I think that I hope that we can choose to follow the light and follow the example of Jesus Christ in how we behave with others and online even, and find ways that we can bring other souls, point them back to Christ, turn to our scriptures, spend more time in our scriptures than on social media, and because I think a lot of social media is designed to whip us up to anger. And so that's really what I want to say. As we move forward, I will continue praying for Charlie's family. And I really hope that we can find ways to de-escalate things as we move forward.
Yeah. So, guys, before we get out of here, I just want to make sure that we give a big shout out to the Go and Do Travel 2025 Wavemakers LDS podcaster cruise going down between November 15th and November 22nd. If you guys want to hang out with Hayden and Jackson Paul, male models of Mormonism and the Marine Corps, if you want to hang out with Jacob Hanson of Thoughtful Faith and want to lift weights with Greg Madsen, he's going to be giving, a calisthenics course, a Cardio Miracle sponsored and, Bowflex sponsored weightlifting. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what he's going to do. But Jasmine Rappley is going to be there. David Butler is going to be there. So is David Boyce and yours truly. If you guys want 10% off of those tickets, make sure you go to Go and Do Travel and you use the coupon code Ward Radio 10 and you'll receive 10% off as well. Also, big shout out to this episode's sponsor, scripturenotes.com, the coolest way of reading your scriptures online, used by all of us. And please make sure that you guys use the get the free what's called a 2-week that's not a coupon. They get a free 14-day trial. I was looking for that word. 14-day trial. That's going to be in the description of this video as well. If you want to support the channel directly, please make sure you consider a generous contribution on Zelle or on Venmo. We're available on both of those platforms. Or pick up a beloved War in Heaven veteran hat at the Ward Radio merch store, or a shirt. Those will all be available as well. Or you can help us out by getting something off of the Amazon equipment wish list. Also, big shout out for our Discord. There is a link in the description of this video to join the conversation on Discord. It's a really great group of friends that always we talk and we joke, and there's great mods there. Shout out to all the mods on Discord. You guys do amazing work and you don't get enough credit. There's just a great community there. Please check it out. Either way, it's been real and it's been fun, and it's been real fun for this and more. Please make sure you check us out at wardradio.com.
I built a rocket in my basement. I'm gonna fly it to the